Hello my fellow Coldplayers, and welcome to this video. In this video we are going to be ranking all the Coldplay albums, all the major Coldplay albums. So before we get started, I just wanted to say a few things. Number one, you may have noticed that I dyed my hair red. And the reason why I did this is because of my band. I haven't mentioned this much in my videos, but I do have a band called If Walls Could Talk, and the hair dye is because of that. So if you're interested in finding more about that, please subscribe to If Walls Could Talk. I'll put a link in the description below, but you'll hear more about this in days to come. Other thing I wanted to mention is that throughout this ranking of all the Coldplay albums, I know that my views are going to differ, probably far differ than your views. So this is just my opinion, how I'm feeling right now. They could change tomorrow, they can change, you know, in years from now. But this is how I'm feeling, and don't take it personally if I don't like your album, your favorite songs, all that. And the last thing I wanted to say is, before we get started, the best way to help me out and support the channel is to subscribe. So if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to this channel. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. All right, so now we will begin with our ranking. So as you can see below here, we have all of the albums, starting with Parachutes, going to Music of the Spheres. And I didn't include, you know, the earlier ones because these are just like the major albums, right? The ones that are kind of recognized as like the major Coldplay albums. Okay, so starting off with the very first album, we have Parachutes, right? This was kind of Coldplay's big scene. This was the first time really being known, specifically on the album. You know, we have songs like Yellow, and that song is, till this day, recognized as one of Coldplay's best albums, or best songs. So I guess the overall feel with this album is very kind of slow, kind of like this bittersweet anthem, right, with Coldplay. And what we hear from Coldplay now is, I'm sure we can agree, far different from where they are. But it's interesting because a lot of their albums, or a lot of their songs now, kind of still reflect some of the songs that we heard in Parachutes. I remember the very first time I heard this album, I was on vacation and I just was driving in the back of a car, or riding in the back of a car, and I just remember hearing songs like Shiver and Yellow, and I just remember just being amazed by it. So because of the nostalgia, because of all of the grandiosity with this album, I think that this deserves to be an A. I know we're starting off pretty hot with ranking an album at A, but I think it just is super fitting. It's where Coldplay started. It's, you know, when they first got known. So yeah, definitely gonna give this one an A. Next, we have A Rush of Blood to the Head, and excuse me for a second while I just pull up all the albums, just have them there. Okay, so A Rush of Blood to the Head has one of my personal favorite songs on it, which is The Scientist. And I think this also kind of set a different tone. You know, with Parachutes, it was very kind of slow and had all these very interesting chords used in it. Then with Rush of Blood to the Head, it was more rock. You know, it starts off with Politic and it's just very, you know, strong, and then it moves on to songs like The Scientist. I just think it was a very diverse album and just a staple in the Coldplay essentials. So goodness, I think I'm gonna, you know, okay, after we're done with all this, I might go and redo some things, but I'm gonna put that as an A as well. I know we're starting off really strong with 2 albums with an A. I doubt that I'll have any in the D, probably not in the C either, but we'll see as we go on. I'll probably have to put an album at C eventually, just because I feel bad about not ranking them. Anyway, moving on to the next album, X and Y. So it's so interesting when you talk about X and Y, because I feel like it is the most, you'll hear the most diverse answers with this album, or I guess the most extreme answers. Either people love this album or people just really don't like this album. I feel like a lot of the longtime Coldplay fans love X and Y a lot. And I feel like when you just talk about this album, people are like, either like, what album are you talking about? Or, no, I really don't like that album. For me, there are certain songs on it that I love. Obviously, Fix You. You know, everyone loves Fix You. But there are certain songs that I love, like White Shadows, Speed of Sound, Hardest Part, Swallowed in the Sea. Swallowed in the Sea is one of my personal favorites too. But despite that, the overall sound of X and Y, and you know, when I'm talking about all these albums, I'm going to be talking about the overall sound, the overall, you know, components of these albums. It's not one of my favorite albums, and I feel so bad saying that, but they just, I think it was a really experimental album, and the experiments they used back in this album helped them to grow where they are today, but it wasn't one of their best works, and that's why I think I'm gonna rank it as a B. I feel so bad about doing that. I don't think it's bad, so I'm not gonna put it at a C or a D, obviously, but I think it belongs in this range. It's not as good as these two, but it's good enough, I think. Oh, I feel so bad about doing this. All right. Now I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of people commenting below saying, why did you rank it as a B? But, you know, feel free to comment below letting me know thoughts. Don't take it personally, like I said. Viva la Vida. Oh man, this album was a gem. It's interesting because this is the most like commercial Coldplay has gotten, right? When they released the song Viva la Vida, that had the most, it was just huge. Like everyone knew it was on all the commercials. It's still, you hear remnants of the song being played in commercials even now. And it was a huge success. I think it won a ton of awards for like Rock Album of the Year or something like that. And when I hear this album, there's literally not a bad song on this album. And I'm either gonna rank it an S or an A. I think I'm gonna rank it an A. It fits along with these lines. I think it might be a little better. I'm actually gonna move these closer to the A if I like them a little better. So yeah, I'm gonna keep that as an A. All right, moving on to Mylo. All right, so, man, we talk about this album a lot recently because of the release of Music of the Spheres, right? Because the comparisons between the two, how they were, you know, this was released in 2011 and this, you know, 10 years before Music of the Spheres. So we talk about all the comparisons, you know, with the sound, how it has like some alien-esque, you know, pop to it. Mylo Xyloto, for me, when I first heard this album, I kind of like understood this as Coldplay sound. You know, like with Parachutes, it was very, very soft, right? Very slow. You've heard other albums like this before. With Rush of Blood, that was rock. You know, it was modern rock, similar to kind of like Snow Patrol almost, you know. Then you heard X and Y, which was just experimental Beatles-esque, you know. Viva la Vida, which they definitely found their own sound with it, and it definitely had these, you know, orchestral tones to it. But with Mylo Xyloto, I think Coldplay really found their sound and really, you know, differentiated themselves between any other band. And for that reason, I'm going to rank Mylo as an S. That's probably going to be a little surprise to a lot of you because I feel like a lot of people didn't appreciate this album as much. Like people who probably liked X and Y a lot didn't like Mylo Xyloto because they're so diverse and so different. But Mylo, for me, was just amazing, and it just really set the tone for what Coldplay is. So yeah, I'm gonna put that there. All right, so this one's interesting, right? We have Ghost Stories, and this was like the breakup album, right, of Chris's, you know, drama. And I remember getting to this album and not being disappointed, but just being like thrown off. I was like, how do you have all these great albums and then just like get to this and it's just so sad? I love this album a lot. I could honestly rank this in any of these, right? But I think I'm gonna put it as a B for right now. I feel so bad because there's one of my favorite songs of all time on there. But I just like, it itself as an album, it just kind of is really sad. I think this album for me is like an S when I'm feeling sad, but on a normal day, kind of like a B or maybe a C. It's so weird. I don't know. I think I could listen to it a lot, but I think I'm gonna leave it as, I feel bad not having anything on a C, so I'm honestly just gonna put it there for now. I feel like a lot of people did like this album, and like specifically A Sky Full of Stars, that is just an amazing song, but that song is very different than any other song on that album. It's not slow, it's not sad. I think it is a masterpiece of an album, but I think it was just their release, their outlet for an album, and I don't think it was like a big time album. I think it was just kind of like almost like an EP, and part of that is the reason why I'm going to keep it here for now. I think I'm going to move it up to B later, but we'll see. Okay, I'm just going to move on. Oh man, dude, A Head Full of Dreams. I think if you've seen where I put Mylo, you'll probably know where I'm going to put this, but this is going to go an S as well. I think this had very similar tones to Mylo, but it was more refined and even better. So A Head Full of Dreams doesn't have a bad song on it. It has Coldplay's sound on it. It has some amazing songs like Army of One, Everglow, Head Full of Dreams, and it's just, it is to me what Coldplay's sound is. I can always forever listen to this album and be happy, and I think you know, the difference between Ghost Stories and Head Full of Dreams is kind of astonishing. But yeah, I can't say enough about this album. That's exactly where I'm gonna put it, as S, S plus, honestly. All right, moving on to Everyday Life. We have some very experimental sounds. We have, you know, kind of, I think, wasn't that the longest time that Coldplay hadn't released music? I think between A Head Full of Dreams and Everyday Life, and everyone's like, okay, is Coldplay done? But listening to this album, it is quite an interesting, has quite an interesting mix of songs, including a song like that sounds like it was recorded from a phone, including a song with like a whole huge choir, a song that is a very, you know, general bop, like radio friendly song. So there's just so much going with it, but I think I'm gonna put it at a B, because I think it was just so discombobulated that I had no idea. Like, when you listen to Viva la Vida, you understand the whole tone of it. And I understand the tone of Everyday Life, being that it's talking about so many different experiences. But I think I'm gonna put it as a B because it didn't feel, I hate saying this, but it didn't feel like really complete. It didn't feel like it worked together. And some of the songs just felt so bizarre that I don't see myself ranking that as an A. So I think I'm just gonna keep that as a B. I do love the album though. A really great album. All these are great albums. And last but not least, we have the newest album, Music of the Spheres. Man, we've been talking about this album since April? Yeah, I think that's when things started really going down. Man, so much has happened with it. I think this is by far the biggest they've promoted an album. Really pushed it, done so many remixes of so many different songs, and just had BTS work with them. They had, you know, all these collabs, so much going on with it. But despite that, I still think this album doesn't rank as high as Viva la Vida, Parachutes, Rush of Blood to the Head. I think it's, in my ranking, better than X and Y, better than Everyday Life, but I'm gonna put it as a B. I know that sounds really hard because I love this album. I talked so much about it, but I think with all the hype that went around this, with Alien Radio, with all these collabs, with all the news that went out about it, I think I may have overestimated how I was going to feel about this album. And I think that kind of hurt my view of it a little bit. And there were certain songs on there, like specifically Higher Power, that I do like that song a lot. But that it was weird that that was like the one that was pushed the most. And it kind of fell short as far as what I wanted from the hit single, you know? So for that reason, yeah, I'm just gonna keep it as a B. And I think this album, you know, people are still kind of just trying to figure out how they feel about it. But I think this is exactly where I am right now. I'll probably listen to it more, it'll probably change a little bit in the years, but this is where it is right now. I think it was pretty polished. I think it was a little too short for me. 42 minutes, you know, that's great and all with the lure and everything, but I think I wanted a little bit more with this album. So I'm gonna keep it as a B. So now let's review, see what we got. In S tier, I think these albums are just gold to me. I think this one definitely is first, and then Mylo second. Oops. Then in the A tier, Viva la Vida, yeah, I think that goes first, then Parachutes, and then Rush of Blood Head. Amazing. Viva la Vida started their own tone, made them really break out. Parachutes was their first official breakout, and Rush of Blood to the Head, you know, I don't think it's as good as these two, but it still has some unique sounds to it and the real first occurrence of rock, really. We have what I just talked about, Music of the Spheres, Everyday Life, and X and Y. I think those are pretty even to me. I think I do like this a lot now. I think, you know, it might change eventually, but I think this is the right order that I have for the B rankings. And then finally, in C, we have Ghost Stories. I'm actually gonna move this up to B, because I don't want to have anything in C. I don't think that's fair. I think this is a great album, and I think it deserves to be in B. I don't think it's that bad. So, alright, well, that is my full ranking of all the albums. I know my view of all these albums probably differs way than yours. So, yeah, I hope you don't hate me too much for the way I ranked these. I honestly wish I could rank them all at S because they are so amazing, and I definitely was a little critical with the way I ranked these, so. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this. Please leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on all these albums, letting me know your thoughts on how I ranked them. Please be kind in the comments too. I do this out of love and, you know, love for you guys and for Coldplay. So thanks again so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.